Hello and welcome back to the Volks Wizard channel. Now I've done 1500 miles in my Cayman GT4 and I feel just about ready to share with you the things that I like and don't like about it. And believe you me, there are quite a few things I don't like. And what better place to film this video than on the Susten Pass here in Switzerland. But before we get started, let me just show you where we're staying, because if you want to drive the Swiss passes, and you really ought to because they're some of the best in the world, then there's no better place to base yourself than this hotel. Well, this is the Radisson Blu Hotel in Andermatt. We chose Andermatt because it's halfway between the Susten and the PORSCHE passes. So if you put in the Grimsel Pass, so the great circuit of driving to be had. If you're feeling a bit more adventurous though, you can take the Gotthard Pass south and then pick up the Nuffenen Pass, which is one of my favourite passes of all time, and that will bring you back to the PORSCHE. We chose the Radisson Blu Hotel because it's pretty much brand new. It's a big brand hotel, so you know what you're going to get, and that's really important when you're on the road for days because you need to get a good night's sleep. It's also really good value for money. Everything's expensive in Switzerland, including hotels. But because they've got a lot of rooms to sell, there are deals to be had, particularly if you book directly via the hotel's website. You do still have to pay for parking though, which is £18 per day. But as you can see, it's a really nice car park. It's well lit, it's secure, the spaces are big. And unusually for a hotel car park, the lift goes directly from this floor to the floor with your room on. And this is our room. Now it's a superior room which we got as a free upgrade from a standard room. Can't guarantee that will happen to you, but I'm sure the standard rooms are just fine. There's a really nice bathroom with wood. There's a minibar. There is a really high spec coffee machine with all sorts of different pods. And even a sachet of hot chocolates. My favourite. More storage down here. There's a room for your bags. And this isn't always the case in hotels, but it's kind of easy to get a room with twin beds, which is important if it's a party of blokes. But the best bit about this room is the view. So we're looking, I think, southeast towards the town of Andermatt. There's lots happening in this shot. So we've got trains, we've got cable cars, we've got roads. I think there's even a cogwheel railway there as well, so lots of things to see, and you can probably car spot as well because that's the main road between the passes. But when you get fed up of that, I'm pleased to report it's really well sound insulated. Okay, you've seen the mountains, now I think it's time for us to get back in them. Well guys, it's great to be back on the Susten Pass. I haven't been here for 11 years. When I was here then, it was in a B5 Audi RS4. Not really a car designed for these corners, but we're in a car now that's ideal for this kind of road. But there are still some things I don't like about it, which we'll talk about shortly. Let's firstly talk about the things that I'd like. Number one, I guess, is practicality. It's such a practical car. We've got the two boots like a Boxster, but unlike a Boxster, we've got a hatch that opens and there's space on top of the engine cover. If you take the parcel shelf out as well, it's a bit less fussy about how much it will fit in its rear boot. With the Boxster, you've got to shut that lid. So yeah, it's super practical, which is great, because when you're touring, like we have been on this holiday, it's easy enough to get all your stuff in. Okay, it's not even easy to carry bikes or skis, but yeah, you can go away in it, which I couldn't really do in my R8. What also helps on long trips like this is that it's not bad on fuel. It's not as good as the Boxster GTS, but it'll still do 30, and I think for a Porsche GT car, that's pretty damn good. Put it this way, my Edition 30 is not much better than this car. In fact, it could actually be worse. What's also very good are the brakes. It's so funny, when you drive other cars and you get into this, the minute you press the pedal when you're setting off, you think this is something special. And that continues when you drive the car. So they've just got so much feel, and there's very little dead travel at the top of the pedal. And yeah, Porsche brakes are always really good, but I think these are some of the best. We've got standard steel discs, but even going down this pass, I wouldn't expect any fade at all. Now let's talk about the gear shift. I was a bit wary about switching to a manual from PDK, because PDK is such a good auto box, but what pushed me over the edge was the promise of the auto blip function, and I have not been disappointed. Yes, I should be able to heel and toe, but I can't, so let's just forget that. Auto blip, when you remember to turn it on, just raises the revs up, so when you're changing down, the engine speed and I guess the gearbox speed are perfectly well matched. And that not only makes it just nicer to drive, I think it's better for rear wheel drive cars, so you don't get the rear axle locking up, and it's also easier, I think, on the gearbox synchro mesh. So yeah, it's great. You can get it on the Hyundai i20N. It's just lovely having it in a Porsche. And no, I don't miss PDK at all. What I also like is that it's a really easy car to drive long distances. It gets into its groove on motorways, and yeah, you can travel across Europe in it. It's not a hardship. You don't come out feeling like a bit of rag. It's surprisingly good in that respect. What also helps is the ride quality. I was a bit worried, being effectively a coilover car, that it would be too hard, particularly in the UK, but it's not. It's firmer than the Boxster GTS, but it's sophisticated with its firmness, and that means it doesn't crash or bang. It's just incredible. And when you come to Europe, you'll be using the harder mode all the time. I'm in it now. I've been driving around with it all day. It's the only mode thing that doesn't change when you turn the ignition on and off, which is pretty cool. What's also good is that the splitter isn't actually that easy to damage. Yes, you will catch it every so often, but it doesn't really stop you driving this car an awful lot of places, and a little scuff here and there isn't really bad. What's also good is that it's not an expensive part from Porsche. It's about £250, so I've been pleasantly surprised how little I've scuffed it. I've done it a couple of times today on a supermarket ramp, but really light that was, on a mountain road that was almost undrivable, but actually the time I did it, which I was really surprised about, was leaving Porsche Centre solely whole. What's also impressive is that, yes, there's a lot of power at the top, and it's really fun to get there, but it's also quite tractable. You don't need to wring its neck to make progress. You can just keep it in a high gear. Driving on the motorways, I don't feel an awful lot of need to shift down to fifth if I want to go faster, but actually autoblip makes that easier. Anyway, okay, those are the things I like about my Cayman GT4. Now let's talk about the less good things. That's the time in the video where I'd like to remind you guys to subscribe to the channel. There will be a second video from this road trip, which is basically the outbound leg from the UK to Lake Lugano in Italy, and it contains loads of good footage, including prototype spotting at the Porsche Development Centre in Weissach, amongst many other things. Also, the car should be at Bicester Heritage Scramble this Sunday, the 8th of October, so keep an eye out for that, and come and say hello if our paths cross. Okay, I don't like the fact the rear boot is shorter. Yes, there's a bit more room here and there, but I got packing my Boxster down to a fine art, and I can't use that system on this car. Things just don't fit. Bags that went in that way now have to go in that way, and that means you have to have fewer bags. Yes, you can put stuff on top of the engine, but you don't really want a big bag blocking the view. You might find a Swiss police cars there and you can't see it. Now let's talk about the parking brake. I really don't know why it cannot come on automatically when you park up. With a manual car, it is quite easy to forget, and maybe you haven't put it into gear, and maybe the car rolls down a Swiss Alp and, you know, explodes. Surely it's programmable in the infotainment system, maybe. Somebody said it's because Porsche owners, they go to racetracks and they park in the paddock, they don't want it coming on. Yeah, but that's like a real small minority of Cayman owners, really. Lots of people just drive them normally and they might want it to come on. But as I say, if we could choose, that would be great. Also, the rear parking sensors are great to have, they're still an option, but they don't show a display on the infotainment screen, which seems a bit silly because it's just software, and it does help, you know, parking if you can actually see what's going on there. So That's quite disappointing as well. Another thing I don't like is that I cannot trust driving this car in the wet. We've been really lucky on this trip. We've done about 1,500 miles so far, and the only rain we saw was when we got on the M40 and for about 10 minutes. So yeah, being up here in the wet on cold cup 2s, might need a change of underwear. And it's like, where do you find the limit? You know, where's it safe to find out how not dangerous it is in the wet, or dangerous it is in the wet? You can't really do that on the road. So yeah, might have to book in some event somewhere and get to learn this car and not be scared of it in the wet, because I do want to drive it in the wet. I don't really want to take the cup 2s off. Obviously I won't drive like a lunatic if there's standing water, but yeah, it's hard to find that envelope where it will work in the wet without crashing and dying. Maybe we won't do that here. Next, we have that old chestnut, the gearing. It's actually not as bad as some people make you think, but you just know the car would be a lot better if the final drive ratio was something like 30% shorter. Another way to look at it is that when you're driving this car, you're at the top of second gear, or you're taking corners in third, whatever. Yes, they're longer and you're going faster, but actually this car is in its operating window that much higher up the gears. So third in this might be like, I don't know, 100 miles an hour, and third in a Golf might be 70, but this car's perfectly happy doing what a Golf does at 70 at 100 miles an hour. Now, if we didn't have speed limits, that would be perfectly good, but we do. So yeah, obviously in the ideal world you do what Matt Farah did.
The gearbox has been removed and the ratios changed 2nd through 5th. So 2nd through 5th are shorter, 1st and 6th are stock.
And really get to wind this car up. I've used first gear on hairpins somewhere on this trip and it was okay, but yeah, it could be so much better. Now we need to talk about the noise. There's quite a couple of different things here. Firstly, I've described the engine on Instagram as sounding like a bag of spanners, and compared to the older version in my Boxster GTS, it does. I've said about the GTS 4 litre with this engine that the noise it makes would give 986 and 987 owners sleepless nights. It sounds like there's something really wrong with your engine because there's this constant chattering, which I think is just the injectors. But when you're doing sort of 70 on the motorway, there's this constant churning coming from the engine. It sounds like you're in your first car where the engine felt like it was in the passenger compartment with you. Anyway, that's it is what it is. It's a motorsporty engine, I guess, so you have to put up with that. What's not excusable is how rubbish it sounds. Sports exhaust on or off really doesn't make much difference. Anyway, here we are in a tunnel. I will demonstrate, so let's rev it up. I'm sorry, but full send in my Boxster GTS in a tunnel with the window down, there would be blood coming out of my ears. But there is a lot to like, and there is a lot to learn with this car, and I'm pretty sure I can put up with the negatives because it's got so many positives, especially on a road like this. Auto blipping, there's fantastic brakes, saving you from sheer drops. The steering feel, I didn't mention that, but yeah, that's not bad as well. And it doesn't sound bad. Well, it can sound bad. It doesn't sound bad now. It probably sounds better outside. But coming from 981 GTS, it can be so much better. So yeah, we'll look at an aftermarket solution for that and that, I think might make me super happy, not just happy, which I am now. My God, this road is amazing. I've driven past it all around Europe. I can't believe it's taken me 11 years to come back here because the scenery is incredible. The road surface is perfect and the road's wide. You can fit camper vans down here and there's probably enough straights to overtake them as well. It's just, honestly, I cannot believe this road. And here comes a tunnel. And there we go, thanks for watching this folks with a video from the Susten Pass in Switzerland. Keep subscribing, keep commenting, and assuming I make it to the bottom, I'll see you for the next one very soon.